applicable to all education domains. So you can actually unlock the free version of Gemini for all domains. And then later on this year, Google hasn't been specific about the timeline for this, but later on, Google will be enabling Gemini for student access as well. So what that means is students will have very much a walled garden version of Gemini. And so depending on your country and the age of access, I believe the standard age is going to be for 13 plus, but that very much depends on the country and region you're in as to what the legal age of access is for Gemini. That's coming out later this year. What we're really going to be focusing on today is where Gemini sits and how the paid versions look. So this is the homepage for Gemini. We can kind of call this a Gemini chat or just a Gemini window. This is where you can begin all of your prompts, and we'll get on to where it integrates with Drive and Gmail in a few minutes. So we can see here, we can actually do everything that we need to do from the other apps within this as well, but it's the integration that becomes very, very powerful. So to kick off with, just a very, very quick overview. If you click on the bars up here, you can see your history of prompts that you have done before. And just down on the bottom left here, we have our settings. And this is actually where we can enable and disable extensions. Now, this is a good point to highlight. If you're on a personal account, when you go to Gemini, you're going to see a number of different extensions. One of them is a YouTube extension. Another is a Google Flights extension. Currently for education, we only have access to the Google Workspace extensions. The other extensions which are coming, so YouTube, for example, that's basically you can drop a YouTube video into Gemini and it will look at the transcript. You can ask questions about the YouTube video and it's all based upon the transcript. So that's where it all fits in. So back to Gemini. So yeah, we have the ability to turn any extensions here. I've turned these on, and what that enables me to then do is when I'm entering a prompt, I can actually ask it to look at a file from Google Drive, or I can ask it to check my emails and all of that. So that's by enabling the extensions. Now we're not going to use that just now. We're going to look at the integration within Drive to dive into those in a moment. So first of all, what we can do, just create a chat. So here's a new Gemini chat. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use Gemini to just generate a lesson plan. So all you do is you drop, I'm sure you're familiar with this, you drop your prompt in and it will go ahead and generate. Now, as we scroll down, we can see it's building this. So I've asked it to generate a lesson plan for the history of the pyramids. I haven't created a very complex prompt here. And it's automatically generated a lesson plan for grades 9 to 12. And we'll come back to that in a few moments. We can see down here, we have our objectives, we've got our materials, and so on and so on, all of these different components of the lesson plan. Now, with the paid version of Gemini, you're automatically getting this ability to then interact with Gemini within your document as well. And so that's what we're going to look at now. So you can see from this, we've generated this content, and we can export to docs or draft in Gmail. By exporting to documents, I now see down here, just give it a moment, it's now taken that content and put it into a document. So now we're inside of Google Docs, and I can see just in the top right with the paid version of Gemini, you have this additional Ask Gemini button just at the top right. That Ask Gemini button appears in Docs, Sheets, Slides, Drive, Gmail, basically across all of the core Workspace apps. So this is what we're going to have a quick look at. So we've extracted our lesson plan. And what I can do here is I can open up the Gemini side panel. Once I open up the Gemini side panel, this is where you get all those additional tools where you get the automatic suggestions here. You can rephrase the content, you can refine it, you can summarize the content, and all of that. These are the automatic suggestions. Now, what I'm interested in, I've already created this lesson plan for grades 9 to 12. What I want to do is actually, I'm just going to copy my prompt. I want to rewrite the objectives to align with grades 6 to 8. So I can just now chat with Gemini in the side panel. So I'm specifically interested in the objectives, and it's taken these objectives and it's going to rewrite them for grades 6 to 8. So give it a moment there, and we can see there, it's created these new objectives. What I can do now is I can choose where I want to insert these, and these objectives, I can just click on the insert button and insert these new objectives. And I can compare these and decide, oh yeah, these are the objectives which are more suitable for my lesson. Obviously, I can remove the old objectives, just change my grade levels. I think I said grade 6 to 8. So I can update that. And I now have these new objectives. So I started with a very, very basic lesson plan prompt from Gemini. I put that into Google Docs, and I've used the refined features to be able to update these with the Gemini side panel. Now I think, okay, this is great. Let's look down at the lesson plan. Okay, now we've got the introduction. What I can now do is actually say, let's create an actual script for my lesson plan. So I've got my lesson plan here. Let's create a script for the introduction. Let's just do that. So it's great to have this outline of a lesson plan. Now, of course, I can use the side panel to create a script. Just give it a moment there to create the script. Okay, so here's my script. This is not the best place to insert it. In fact, I'll do it at the bottom, just for clarity. So the bottom of my document, I can now take the script and put it straight into my lesson plan. And of course, with this script, you may want to add this to your slide deck or wherever your presentation is, or you may want to put this somewhere else. But we'll just put this in the lesson plan for now. So this is great. We've got, a short script here we can use as a base. And we've got the teacher speaking, we have the student speaking, and then the teacher speaking as well. What I can then additionally do is actually can take this and I can actually refine this text. I can use a help me write tool. So again, within Google Docs, rather than using the side panel, you can select text and use help me write. There's a few different things you can do here. So if we look at this, what comes to mind when you see this image? We're talking about pyramids here. We can actually change the tone to formal or casual. We can elaborate it. We can rephrase it. There's a number of different things. Let's just do a simple rephrase. Fantastic. With live demos, that can always happen. Let's just try that one more time. Let's elaborate this. Okay, awesome. With a live demo, that is always the risk of that happening. So what we can do instead, let's take this and let's open up the side panel, and instead, let's do that in the side panel. Give it a moment. Okay, so now it's elaborated this text. That's great. Usually that works fine in the document, but these things happen. So I've elaborated that text, and then of course, again, I can just insert this text into my script. So I can insert this. What you can also do at the same time is you can actually retry. So if you can say, well, that text isn't great, you can retry this. You can also retry with Google Search. And so if you tap on the retry with Google Search button, what it's going to do, it's going to look on the web as well as its generated text. What we can see now, it's been searching across the web and generated an even longer script here. And then we can insert that as well. Sometimes when you generate from the web as well, it will take your generated text and include references to other content. So we're working across the document, we're working in Gemini, all in the side panel for all of that. Now, let's just close that out. Let's look at this lesson plan and decide, okay, we're happy with this lesson plan now, but I need to create a slide deck. So actually just open up the side panel, and we're going to create, in fact, I am going to just copy my prompt across. We're going to create a slide deck outline for this lesson. So as it does that, we just want a slide deck outline that we can then use in slides to build out a slide deck. Just give it a moment to generate that. Okay, so here we can see we have And in fact, another thing we can do, because I know this is quite small, probably when I'm presenting, is we can expand the Gemini window. And here we can see we've built a slide deck outline for this lesson plan. And we can see here we've got a number of different slides. And in fact, I'm going to take just slide 3. I'm going to take this slide here. Okay, I'm just going to copy this text. And we're going to go over to Google Slides. Now, in Google Slides, Gemini sits in the same place. You can actually work with Gemini on the screen. You can generate text, but we're going to use a side panel again. I'm now going to use the automatic button here. So to create a slide, in fact, I'm just going to click on that button just to show you what it looks like. So you can actually create a slide about anything, and you can insert your text down here. We already have our slide outline. So create a slide about, I'm just copying my slide outline across and hit enter. Let Gemini work away. It's going to, hopefully, in this live demo, create an outline of slide that we can use in this lesson plan. Okay, and there we go. And it's created a lesson outline, a slide outline for this specific slide. And what we can do now, we can retry this, we can rebuild this. We can actually show the sources. Well, there's no sources here because I haven't included anything from Drive, but I'll show you how we can do that in a few moments. We can go ahead and insert this. And that's how you can build your slide deck. You can't yet take a whole outline and build a deck from an outline, but you can do it on the individual slide basis. We can also generate images. And so if I wanted to generate a different image, let's create an image of pyramids under construction. We can do that as well. So you can create images here in slides. I think we know that Google stepped back from allowing the creation of people within images. So hopefully that will be coming back. But here we can see, no idea if it's correct or not. Here is a pyramid under construction. And you can choose to use this or not. You can put this into your slide deck and so on. Okay, let's go back to our lesson plan. So we've built out, looking ahead, we've developed our lesson plan. We've worked on the objectives. We've created a script. We got our slide deck. Well, towards the end of the lesson plan, we want to think about what kind of options do we have for assessments. Let's just drop this in here. A new prompt. What are assessment options for this lesson? We can drop that into the Gemini side panel, and it's going to come up with a few suggestions. Well, we might already know what type of assessment we want to do. So we can see here a few assessment options has come up with discussion, a worksheet, a quiz. Let's decide we want to build a quiz out for this lesson. We can do that as well. So based upon this lesson, we can just drop in the prompt, create 10 true, false questions to use as a formative assessment. And then it will create those questions for us. And we can drop those into a slide deck. We can put those into a Google form. We can do whatever we want with. We can see it's built out those true or false questions. Okay. When I did this a moment ago, it did actually come up with the solutions to those questions alongside to that. Well, I can see it hasn't built out the solutions for that, but it did a moment ago. You have to believe me on that one. So there's our assessment. So we've done the whole thing now. We built the lesson plan. We created a slide deck. We're building out assessments all within Gemini in the side panel. Okay, there's obviously a lot of features, a lot of different things that we could do with Gemini for teachers. Well, let's go back to Gemini chat. I'm going to create a new chat just over here. And instead of thinking about from a teacher side, let's consider things that we could do as an administrator or even as a support staff for a school. So this time we're going to go back to Gemini. We're going to create an AI strategy for a K-12 school. Well, this is not a great prompt for this. I think we should have a much more complex prompt, but this will just get us started. Okay, so here we're creating an AI strategy. So it's built out the full strategy. Of course, we could fine-tune the prompt and probably add in the context of our school. Let's just give it a moment. A couple of things I just want to highlight. Once we've built out this strategy, what we can actually do is we can actually double check response. So the Google button just down here, and this goes for any generated content. You can actually tap on the Google button and it will check the text that you have generated and it will cross-reference it across the web. So we can see, might be a little bit difficult to see out on the screen, but we have these green highlighted sections. And if you see a green highlighted section, you can actually use the down arrow, and it's recognizing that Google search has found similar content to this. And so you can actually see on the web where it's referenced the web or found similar content that you can also use as citations for your generated content. Okay. It will also check content, and occasionally it will come up with a red highlighted section as well and show that maybe this doesn't match any content on the web. Okay, so with this, we're going to go and put this in back into our document as well. So let's export this to docs and we'll open this up. Just give it a moment to work on that. Okay, so it's brought this across. I brought this across to my Google Documents again. And again, just a couple more features I want to share is let's just pick the Future Ready Student section. So what I can then do is I can review my policy. I can select some text, and then I can choose what I want to do with this. I can formalize the text. I can make it more casual, but I'm more interested in the elaborate just there. And I can very quickly just elaborate what we have created for Future Ready students. Okay, so we can see that it's elaborated this text. When you're happy with this, you can refine it further. You can change the tone directly, or we can just insert this into our document. Oops. Okay, so we can see how we can modify the generated content within Docs. What we can also do is I'm going to open the side panel, and I'm going to say this time, let's refine the goals section, referring to and we have a sample acceptable use policy on this domain. So what we can now do is very powerful because you can refer to other documents in your domain, in your drive that you have access to create content. So we have our goals section just at the top here. We've got enhanced learning, empower educators. Now what I'm using our acceptable use policy that exists on our drive, and I'm asking it to refine the goals section, referring to that AUP. Okay, so it's looked into our AUP and it's expanded upon that. Just for reference, I can just open up our AUP. Here's our acceptable use policy, just for reference, a separate document. But if I go back to this AI strategy, we've recreated this section by looking at the acceptable use policy for further information. And you can do that across Drive. You can do that for basically any file that's sitting in your Drive. You can refer to that for content generation. You can take that. We can say, okay, well, we've got our goals here. I'll just create some space down here. We can scroll to the bottom. We can insert that, and then we can choose to replace it, or beyond that, we can go ahead and edit that. Okay, so we talked about Drive a little bit. We've seen the way that Gemini can interact, and we can get text out into Google Docs. And we've talked about Drive a little bit. If I go over to Google Drive now, we can again see that we have a Gemini button just at the top. And I can open up Ask Gemini. When I open up Ask Gemini, there's a lot I can do with this. It gives you prompts already. You can learn about a file. You can summarize topics. You can ask questions, all directly within Google Drive. But what you can also do is just choose a file that's sitting in Drive and you're thinking, oh, what was this file about? And you can actually just drag it across to Gemini, and it will automatically start to summarize and give you an overview of what is in that file. Once it's giving you an overview, you've dragged it in there, it's summarizing it automatically. You can actually ask it further questions about that file. Okay. What we can now do is from within Gemini in Google Drive, we can actually ask it to create an email text, or a document, whatever we want to do it, and actually use the same file again. So again, this is a demo domain, so it might not pick up all of my content. So just give it a second. Give that one more try. Okay, there we go. Create a summary email announcement about this paper. To give it a moment there. So again, you can build, you can create or generate directly within Google Drive as well. Just give it a moment there. So here's my summary email. We can go down and we can review the text, and then we can copy this text and then go and put this inside of Gmail. Talking about Gmail, we can switch over to Gmail now. Now, again, this is a demo domain, so I don't really have any long threads that I can demo with this. But just for example, I'm going to open up this email thread here. Just zoom in a little bit. So now we're inside of Gmail, and I can open up Ask Gemini again. And I know this is quite a short email. We don't really need this, but just as a quick demo, we can summarize this email. Once we've done that, I can build out a summary of this email. What's really good with this is when you have a long chain of emails, and I did this the other day on a chain of 50 emails, it would summarize many of the main points with those emails. And you can even ask it deeper questions about points as well. You could say, in this email chain, what did Dan say about this topic? So you can do all of that. Again, this is a short email, but it gives you an idea of what the summarize function looks like. What we can also do is, let's go back to the main page. I can actually, let me just clear this. We can clear the history of Gemini just for a moment. We can do other things as well. You can show unread emails. You can show emails with a specific label attached. You can show emails with a specific topic. Okay, I guess I have no, again, this is a demo domain. It's a little hard to show with live data from this. There's lots of different things you can do with email, but you can also create an email. So down here, I could create an email announcing this week's parents' meeting. For grade 7, for example. So create an email announcing this week's parent meeting for grade 7. I can do that in the side panel for Gemini. And as that's creating away, okay, so I can actually do that there. I can take this and put it into an email. But if I just close out Gemini, and let's compose an email, just make this a little bit larger, you can do exactly the same thing in Gmail as well. So you can open up, once you've opened up Gmail, the Help Me Write button is just at the bottom, and you can do exactly the same thing. So I'm just going to take my prompt, draft an email to announce the parents' meeting, and it will build that draft directly within Gmail. Okay, and we can see it's built out this draft. We can insert this, we can recreate it, we can refine it. Again, we can change how this text sounds. So I've just clicked on formalize, for example, and then you can insert this into an email. Okay, mindful of time, we're just going to jump very quickly into Google Sheets, because there's a few options for Google Sheets. Okay, again, within Google Sheets, just like all the different apps, Gemini sits, the Gemini button is up at the top right. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create some sample grade data for 2 different schools where, let's think about this, where math scores are high and English scores are low. Okay, not talking about bias here or anything like that, just creating some sample data. And the reason I'm creating this sample data is then we can see, okay, actually what I want to do, I'm going to edit this prompt. I actually want to create for students. Give it a moment. Okay, so there we go. We got some sample student data. And in fact, I'm going to edit this again. Let's do 20 rows of student data. So as it's building that, it's creating some sample data. And then we're going to be able to use that data for something else. Just give it a second here. We need some lounge music as Gemini is generating. Here we go, great. So I've got my sample data. I've got school A and school B. I've got my student IDs. Of course, we may have names. Let's insert this data. Now, once we've inserted this data, what I can now do is I can actually ask questions about this data. So what I can actually do is say, create a formula to calculate, let's do a simple one here. The average history grade for school A. So rather than just asking it questions about your data, you can actually ask it to create formulas about your data as well. Okay, so we see what it's done here. It's created this formula. It's an average if, so it's looked at, I know it's probably quite small. It's a little bit hard to, let's just put that in. So it's created an average if formula. It's looked at my grade data in column F. It's cross-referenced against the school, and it has, it's filtered, the if condition is based on school A. And that's what it's done there. It's creating our average grade. And you can do that for many different things. We can also say, compare the math scores between school A and school B. Okay, it's getting a little bit risky with some of these prompts now. A lot of these features are quite new, so we'll see what it comes up with. The other day, I had some grade data. Okay, that wasn't quite what I'm looking for. Create a summary email comparing the grades from school A and school B. Let's try that. So the other day, I created some comparison of grades data all within the side panel of Gemini. Let's see if it wants to play ball today. Okay, there we go. Let me just expand that a little bit. So again, we created a summary email. We've looked at school A, school B. It's done basic statistical analysis. Of course, you might want to go in this and verify that all of this is correct, but it's a great way of just bringing out some highlights about your data. Okay, so we've looked across what we've just done. We've done a light overview of Gemini from the chat window. We've gone into Google Docs. We've taken that information and we dropped it into Google Slides. We've looked at the Drive integration and the Google Sheets integration.